sometimes I really am ahead of my time, I think, ladies and gentlemen. I don't say that as a boast. I say it as an observation and an objective statement of fact. I've been saying since November the 6th, 2012, that America passed the Rubicon. You know how Douglas V. Gibbs uses that analogy of you're in a boat and you're headed toward the falls, and you know, the point of no return is just up ahead, and if everybody turns the boat around and rows in the other direction, you can still turn it around. You can still escape the falls, not go over them and perish. Of course, they went over. The protagonists went over 3 waterfalls in Indiana Jones and the Legend of the Crystal Skull, and they survived. So, of course, they wouldn't have in reality, especially not the 3rd one. But I digress. And I've been saying, no, we can't survive. It's already over. Barack Obama's re-election doomed the old American Republic. Whatever we have now, it is not a republic. It irritates me to no end when constitutionalists and former constitutionalists, like Mr. Gibbs, you can't be a constitutionalist and support Donald Trump. It's fundamentally incompatible. But when they talk about saving the country in the present tense, and they say, we are a republic. No, we're not. Not anymore. We haven't been a republic since November the 6th, 2012. That was the Rubicon. Barack Obama could not be reelected if we wanted to save the republic. We reelected Barack, well, not we, but you know what I mean. Reelected Barack Obama, and that was it. Country's dead as a republic, as the whatever was left of it that the founders bequeathed us was dead, gone, finished. Toe tag, 6 feet under, pushing up daisies, assumed room temperature. Pick your analogy. And so, ever since then, that's what I've been saying. The old American Republic is dead. I mean, we can talk about resurrecting it. We can talk about bringing it back, but we don't have a republic to defend anymore. And of course, as time has gone on throughout Barack Obama's 2nd term, that has become more and more and more obvious, culminating in the nomination of Donald Trump as the so-called Republican presidential nominee. You know, now neither major national political party believes in constitutionalism, believes in small government, believes in the values of the founders, believes in the republic that the founders gave us. What have you given us, Mr. Franklin? A republic, if you can keep it. We couldn't keep it. We chose to piss it away on November the 6th, 2012. And now both major parties have given up and adopted authoritarianism and philosophies that the founding fathers would have abhorred, did abhor. Well, now we find somebody of the stature of Victor Davis Hanson agreeing with me. It took, apparently, Professor Hanson upwards of 3 years to, more than that, 3.5 years, to finally come around to the truth of what I have been saying for 3.5 years. The old American Republic is dead, dead, dead for a ducat, dead. It's been fundamentally transformed. Have we reached a point of no return? We reached it 3.5 years ago. Multicultural societies from 19th century Austria, Hungary to contemporary Iraq, Lebanon, the former Yugoslavia, and Rwanda have a poor record of keeping the peace between competing tribes. Right tribe, wrong tribe. They usually end up mired in nihilistic and endemic violence. Black Lives Matter, jihadist infiltration. The only hope for history's rare multicultural multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious nations is to adopt a common culture, like the ones the Founding Fathers bequeathed us. One that artificially suppresses the natural instinct of humans to identify first with their particular tribe, like Trumplicans, for example. America, in the logical spirit of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, was exceptional among modern societies and slowly evolving from its original, largely European immigrant population to a 21st century assimilated, integrated, and intermarried multiracial society in which religious and racial affiliations were incidental, not essential to one's public character and identity. Such a bold experiment was always tenuous and against the cruel grain of history, in which the hard work of centuries could be easily torn apart by the brief demagoguery of the moment. Right, Trumplicans? Unfortunately, Barack Hussein Obama, ever since he first appeared on the national political scene in 2007, has systematically adopted a rhetoric and an agenda that is predicated on dividing up the country according to tribal grievances, like a good little Marxist-Leninist, in hopes of recalibrating various factions into a majority grievance culture, otherwise known as the Democrat Party. In large part, he has succeeded politically, but in doing so, he has nearly torn the country apart. Or in other words, he has succeeded politically. Indeed, it is no exaggeration to suggest that no other recent president has offered such a level of polarizing and divisive racial bombast. Most recently, without citing any facts about the circumstances of the police shootings in Minnesota and Louisiana, Barack Obama castigated the police and the citizenry on their culpability for racial disparity and prejudicial violence. These fatal shootings are not isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of the broader challenges within our criminal justice system, the racial disparities that appear across the system year after year, and the resulting lack of trust that exists between law enforcement and too many of the communities they serve. Obama did not yet know the race of the policemen involved. As in the case of Baltimore, the Minnesota shooting involved non-white officers. The circumstances that led to the shootings or the backgrounds of either the officers or their victims. But what do facts matter when the agenda must be advanced? And of course, these days, everyone's entitled to their own facts, right, Trumplicans? Shortly afterwards, 12 Dallas law enforcement officers were shot and 5 of them killed by a black assassin who declared solidarity with Black Lives Matter and proclaimed his hatred for white law enforcement. That outbreak prompted Obama to take to the podium again to recalibrate his earlier message. This time he amplified his gun control message. The agenda must be advanced, ladies and gentlemen. And somewhat delusionally added that the upswing in racial polarization did not imperil national unity. That's not just delusional, it's oxymoronic. In much the same way that in years past he had announced that Al-Qaeda was on the run. We were leaving behind a stable Iraq, and ISIS was a JV organization. Note the Obama editorial method in the case of police incidents from Skip Gates to Louisiana and Minnesota. He typically speaks before he has the facts, and when subsequent information calls into question his propaganda and theorizing, he never goes back and makes the corrections, because it never happened. Down the totalitarian memory hole. Nor does he address facts from Ferguson to Dallas that do not fit his political agenda. Finally, a police shooting of an African-American suspect is never an isolated event, while the shooting of an officer by a black assassin is isolated and never really thematic of any larger racial pathology because it doesn't advance the agenda. We were introduced to Obama's idea of career enhancement through racial polarization during the 2008 political campaign. Obama had earlier, when he saw it as being to his advantage, emphasized to the Chicago Sun-Times that as a devout Christian, he dutifully attended Reverend Jeremiah Wright's church. Reverend. Forgot the quotes for that one. Yep, every week, 11 o'clock service. Indeed. Wright offered inspiration to Obama with his trite audacity of hope refrain, which Obama plagiarized for the title of his 2008 campaign booklet. Once Wright was exposed on video as an uncouth racist and anti-Semite, Obama made the necessary adjustments. Remember the Oreo discourse in March of 2008? As every week transmogrified into spotty attendance and explained why Obama was shocked, and his spiritual mentor was publicly exposed. In that era of Obamania, most people shrugged that Obama surely never brought into Wright's racist and anti-American sermonizing, but simply put up with the venom spewed every week at Trinity United as a political investment, both establishing his radical street credentials and bolstering support among the members of Chicago's black churches. But you can't marinate in something without smelling like it to some degree. That's the same thing with anybody who supports Donald Trump. You can't wrestle with the pigs and not get covered in mud. But there were plenty of markers on Obama's own turns of phrase to indicate that racial tranquility is not where we were headed. Typical white person. And a litany of divisive campaign sloganeering followed. Like bring a gun to a knife fight and get in their faces, along with the stereotyping of the white working class of Pennsylvania, who had failed to appreciate Obama's singular brilliance in the state's Democrat primary. Nothing much changed when Obama entered the Oval Office, and why should it, when Obama won record majorities of minority voters in 2008 and would again in 2012. Reichsfuhrer Eric the Red Holder, who almost immediately dropped a likely successful voter intimidation prosecution against the new Black Panther Party, a group to which the Dallas police assassin claimed affinity, set the new tone of the Obama injustice, revenge, and cover-up commissariat by referring to African Americans as, quote, my people, close quote, and deriding Americans in general as, quote, a nation of cowards, close quote. Punish our enemies, characterized Obama's approach to race and bloc voting. Each time an explosive racial confrontation appeared on the national scene, Obama, always in his accustomed academic intonations, did his best to exploit the issue. So, the Skip Gates farce was leveraged into commentary about police stereotyping and profiling on a national level. The police officer in the Ferguson shooting was eventually exonerated. Darren Wilson, that was his name. Darren Wilson. Wilson! But it was eventually exonerated by Obama's own injustice, revenge, and cover-up commissariat, but not before Obama had already exploited the shooting for political advantage, as part of a larger false narrative of out-of-control racist cops who recklessly shoot black suspects at inordinate rates to the population, rather than in the context of their national incidents of contact with police. It mattered nothing that the signature line of Ferguson and the founding motto of Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot, was exposed as a myth by Eric Holder's own investigators. Right in the midst of the ongoing Trayvon Martin shooting trial, the President of the United States, in carry-on fashion, weighed in by speculating whether the son he had never had would have looked like young Martin, not merely risking prejudicing the case, although the newly dubbed white Hispanic George Zimmerman was nevertheless exonerated by a jury of his peers, but reminding the country that our racial heritages are the basis of tribal resonance. Black Lives Matter was founded on a separatist and radical racialism. When an inept Bernie Sanders tried to suggest that all lives matter, he was bullied into silence by extremists who rushed the podium. Pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon, became a Black Lives Matter marching slogan last summer in Minnesota. Rhetoric amplifying the calls for, when do we want them? Dead! What do we want? Dead cops! When do we want them? Now! In an earlier New York City march that was in turn logically reified in Dallas by the assassin who dead copped white police officers. When Obama invited Black Lives Matter founders to the White House in February, he praised them by asserting that they were much better organizers, communizers, than he had been at a comparable age, adding that he was confident that they are going to take America to new heights. New heights of what? I think we know. It's more like depths. Prior Black Lives Matter marching death chants to police should have been known to Obama at this time, but I'm sure it was. He agreed with them. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. That'll teach Whitey, right? Every problem has a resolution, but often not a good one. In the case of widely publicized shootings of black suspects by police, regardless of the landscapes involved, police already have proven less likely to respond promptly to inner-city calls for help, rightly or wrongly convinced that they either will be shot at by assassins or will be forced to use force to protect themselves in a manner that will end their careers or will hesitate and pay a lethal price for losing deterrence. They likewise assume that their politically appointed high-profile superiors will not support them under media and political pressures, and that society at large has no stomach for a candid conversation, and in other words, a truthful one, ranging from history to culture to public policy to economics, about the dilemma of young black males who constitute about 3 to 4% of the general population and are responsible for between 25 and 50% of some categories of violent crime. The only conclusion you can draw from that, ladies and gentlemen, is that the left wants black crime to run wild, even though most black crime is committed against other black people. Sounds almost like Margaret Sanger in Planned Parenthood. Remember Margaret Sanger? One of her purposes for abortion on demand was to reduce the black population control of inferior, quote-unquote, groups. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, one of the pillars of the left, was prejudiced as hell against African Americans. Isn't that what this sounds like? I mean, if you withdraw the cops and just let black people mow each other down without any resistance, without any attempt to control it or stop it, to say nothing of race wars. It's 1968 all over again. Destabilize society. That's a communist objective. Always has been and always will be. This spring, Obama invited a series of rappers and extremists to the White House, whose careers and rhetoric are often violent and divisive. Rapper Rick Ross on bail pending trial on kidnapping and assault charges. Can you imagine if a Republican president, I don't know if there is an equivalent there, but let's just say there is. Can you imagine a Republican president doing that, inviting people to the White House? Well, actually, if Donald Trump ever got to the White House, yeah, you could imagine him inviting Klansmen to the White House for high-profile meetings. One more reason I'm no longer a Republican. But just picture this. Obama inviting a series of rappers and extremists to the White House whose careers and rhetoric are often violent and divisive. The aforementioned rapper Rick Ross, that's alliterative at least, on bail, pending trial on kidnapping and assault charges, had his ankle bracelet go off at a White House ceremony. Black Lives Matter and Ferguson extremist Charles Wade abruptly declined his White House invitation, apparently because he had been recently arrested for pimping and human trafficking. Marquee rapper Kendrick Lamar's Pimp a Butterfly album cover portrayed black men hoisting champagne bottles and displaying $100 bills on the White House lawn in merriment over the corpse of a white judge with his eyes X'd out. Barack Obama invited this human filth to the White House and praised them and lauded them. These are the people that are going to take America to new heights. Reality mimicked art when Lamar, whose video sets included singing from a vandalized police car, was invited to the White House. Or perhaps when 5 fatally shot policemen on the ground in Dallas superseded Lamar's image of a prone and eyeless dead judge. How about creating an atmosphere of hate that inspires violence? Remember that old saw from the left? You never hear anything about that, do you? It's much more applicable to this than it's ever been in reverse. I can't stand Sarah Palin, but her campaign ads putting crosshairs over congressional districts, and supposedly that inspired Jason Doherty, I think that was his name, Jason Laughlin, to shoot then Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. What was that, 5 years ago? 5.5 years ago. You know, that was BS, but it definitely applies a lot more to this, to the Dallas police shootings. Obama, remember, has cited the police hating Lamar, for example, and we hate Popo, wanna kill us dead in the street for sure, nigga, quote unquote. That's a quote, I didn't say it, not my words, it's a quote from a lyric from one of Mr. Lamar's songs. Isn't that interesting how they call themselves the N-word, but heaven forfend, well, the white person, I have no desire to use that term, but why do they call themselves by this term? They call each other, not all African Americans, but a lot of African Americans call each other the N-word. Anybody ever wonder about that? Ask the question, why do they do that? Why? Never mind, why is it okay for them to call each other that? Why do they do it? Obama cited the police hating Lamar as his favorite rapper. His favorite rapper. I wonder if he delivered any guest sermons at Trinity United Church. And the Dead Judge album as the best album of the year. This is the President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, lauding race war and cop killing. As The One has reminded us, words matter. Some words obviously more than others. So far in 2016, the shootings of police are up 44% over last year, and last year they were up a large percentage over the year before that. Celebrating the image of a murdered judge is no impediment to an Oval Office visit and a presidential endorsement. Why would the more reckless extremists see any real social odium in escalating the hatred and therefore the violence? The race war against whitey, pursuing anti-white genocide. What does one have to do to be disqualified from a White House visit or earn the president's disapproval? Well, you know what they have to do. They have to be a Republican. Or be under indictment for a felony. Or commercialize a picture of a judge's corpse. That is, let us not forget, Barack Obama's favorite rap album from his favorite rapper. That more police may have been targeted in Tennessee, Georgia, and Missouri following the Dallas carnage was the logical result of more than a year of contextualizing Black Lives Matter rhetoric and lies, and expressing pseudo-hip adulation of purveyors of anti-police and anti-judicial venom, but always from a safe distance. What does a Secret Service agent think when Lamar, who became a multimillionaire from lyrics like "We Hate Popo," comes to visit the Oval Office? Well, they're probably too drunk to even notice. Obama predicates such no-consequences racial trafficking on four astute assumptions. First, he believes that promoting racial identity, and the more raw the better, is good politics. That it will solidify his new Democrat coalition, energizing grievances to ensure record turnout and block voting. Second, he assumes that most of America is still locked into an anachronistic 1960s dialectic of a white-black binary in the context of continuing bitterness over the racism of Jim Crow, rather than the complex reality of a 21st century society of multiple races and ethnicities well into our sixth decade of affirmative action and racial compensation, both of which are racist at their core, fundamentally speaking. Third, Obama assumes that his Ivy League metrosexual and teleprompted image, in wink and nod fashion, reassures white liberals that while he flirts with and manipulates the uncouth rhetoric and imagery that the cruder rappers or Uncle Jeremiah routinely peddle, he could not possibly buy into their full program, even though he clearly does, wholeheartedly, zealously. And fourth, Obama assumes that his own racial heritage exempts his sloppy rhetoric and actions from the sort of accountability that would doom a non-minority politician who had compiled a similar oeuvre of tolerating racial incendiarism. And he's absolutely right about that. Yet, when a society reaches a point at which the remedy, honest dialogue and debate, is considered worse than the disease, racial animosity, then chaos and disintegration are the prognoses and the goal. Up to now, the war zones in Chicago and Philadelphia and other inner cities that routinely experience abject killing each week have been largely ignored by communists, given the nature of black-on-black violence in cities with strict gun control laws, liberal governments, and ample social welfare programs. Yet it may be that these recent shootings in Dallas and various other cities, rather than signaling a new dialogue, mark a strategy of exporting gun violence to purported white purveyors of racism. Race war. If that happens, then we are back to the 1960s, but worse. Read the online racist comments posted on any major news agency's accounts of a crime involving race to sense the polarization that has intensified since 2008 and intensified from the top. Meanwhile, abroad, the world looks not just at the tearing apart of American society under Obama, but at that society's collective inability to even discuss the catalysts for either Islamic terrorism of the Orlando and San Bernardino sort or the recent racial violence. When this is collated with 7 years of failed reset with Russia, the Iranian nuclear sellout, the rise of the Islamic State, the implosion of the Middle East, and the new belligerency in Red China and North Korea, we may be facing a final 6 months Well, maybe it's final, maybe it's not. I'm not backing off of that. I'm not convinced that Barack Obama is going to leave office when he's supposed to. We may be facing over the next 6 months the likes of which we have never been seen, or which have never been seen, or which we have never seen in modern political history. And that may well be the means by which Barack Obama unconstitutionally and tyrannically extends his tenure. I've been talking about that for the last 3 years plus too. About Barack Obama he is cultivating a bookend crisis. I mean, a crisis is what put him in office, put him in power. Another crisis is what can keep him in power forever. Or beyond next January 20th. Don't doubt me on this, folks. Don't doubt me on this. I've been saying it for the past 3.5 years. That I think we may be looking at the means. Some national crisis, national martial law. Remember Operation Jade Helm last year? Just saying. Don't rule it out. Not predicting it, but don't rule it out. Perhaps Obama has been prescient about after all, about American sins and the need for apologizing, contextualization, and reset. No, he hasn't. A 21st century society that celebrates separatism and violence and that pardons, which has infected the Republican Party as well in the form of Trump mania, and that pardons the venom of Black Lives Matter and its more extreme manifestations, or that exempts Hillary Clinton from all legal accountability, may simply not be able to exercise a position of world moral authority after all. And that, too, was deliberate.